My name is Manuel Seuffert. I'm going to introduce myself in a second. I have the pleasure of working with the whole team here of the Latvian Technology Center in the project called STARRISE. And I'm going to introduce myself in a second. Now, on the session we're going to have in the next 2 hours here in those rooms and also virtually, it's all about pitching. And as you can see, labeled that pitch perfect. I'm standing a bit in the way for you, right? So if I go even more this way, so pitch perfect as a hopefully some ignition of sparks for all of you to work on your pitch presentations, not only for tomorrow, but hopefully also for the next weeks, months, years. I will also show why I am talking about pitching and where I get my experience from. In order to keep you interested and awake, just a quick overview of what we're going to cover. So we're going to start with some of the kind of setting the scene, a bit of objectives. And then, as you can see, we dive through various parts from knowing your audience, whom are you pitching to, and then what are enabling factors? What is the surrounding you need to ensure in order to make your pitch a potential success? And then we dive into oral presentation, written presentations, and of course, do have time for a wrap-up. There's going to be examples in there. There's going to be tips and tricks in there. I try to make it a little bit interactive to keep you guys from not falling asleep. And also from my perspective, one organizational aspect is if you got any questions, so I'm not reading Discord, anyone who's joining online, sorry, I'm not reading Discord while standing here, but we have other skilled people who do that. If you got questions, feel free to raise your hands or interrupt me. I'm not taking it personally, but I would rather want to go and discuss questions as soon as they arise. Yeah? So no need to wait until 4:30 in the afternoon before we start having a question. Quick fact about me, said Manuel Seuffert is my name. Here on the left, you see a couple of the focus areas that I deal with, that I usually, work on or contribute to projects. And on the right, you can see a bit of my background and why I am talking to you. On the very top is my current position. I'm director with the company Carney Improve, where Carney is an international management consulting company, and Improve is, if you like, the innovation specialist team within Carney. And we work with the LTC on public projects. We also work in the private sector. And I've done a couple of things before. So more than 4 years, I've been with RTL Disney as a corporate responsible for digital business models and the venture arm. And before that, head of business development in a startup. So I helped a startup growing from 4 people to 34 and becoming market leader in 2 years. And even before, after my studies, I started at another consultancy. Simon Kuchen was a consultant for 2 years. And then, why am I talking about pitches? So what I currently do, if I start on the top right, what I'm currently doing is whenever it is in the public sector, I tend to work also as a coach, as a mentor for companies that want to grow, that want to scale up, that want to basically earn more money and internationalize sometimes, or just find optimization ways for their business. I also started my own company as a side business while doing that, and also sold my shares again, because there's no time to work a side business if you're a consultant. And I've done that before. So when I was at the RTL Disney company, I also started a company which was actually on business plan support. So I supported other startups and companies doing better business plans, because one of my key tasks at RTL was to review business plans from venture candidates that we would want to invest in. And I supported companies on kind of developing pitches and business plans. And for the Price24 company, or in between Price24 and RTL, I had a little entrepreneur in residence action with an investor where I was the one creating a business plan and a little startup. So yeah, that's why I'm talking about pitches, because I've seen both ways. I've been pitching to others for the price 24. It was sold to the second largest media company in Germany. It was acquired by them after a couple of years. So I helped prepare those pitches from a startup perspective. And I reviewed a couple of them to be better for potential investor pitches. And then I was the one reviewing them as well. I hope that helps to bring one or the other example and make it worthwhile to sit here or to participate today. It seems to no longer work, guys. Maybe you clicked somewhere else, but I can't. Well, the battery is empty, but it's not switching anymore. No, it is. Okay. And all good. All good. Now, the objectives on what is this session, what is the Pitch Perfect session giving you? Threefold. First, I want to support you in gaining even more confidence than you already have in your skills of delivering pitches. Then on the structure, I want to provide you with a structured approach on how to create pitches that can create great impact. And first of foremost, obviously, wants to encourage you to practice, not necessarily only now in these 2 hours, but rather today, tomorrow, for tomorrow evening to have something nice and catchy to say. Not necessarily ending up in dozens of pages of a PowerPoint presentation. It can also be verbally done very nicely. But maybe it helps in 2 months from now, or ideally 3 years from now. I don't know. Yeah? So getting practice and learning from peers, from experts. I'm not the only one in the room who potentially created a pitch. So I'm the one who has the honor to speak to you about it. But I think there are many more who could contribute as well. Know your audience. So I'm not asking you to jump around to fight your after lunch down, but I would be curious to hear about you. How would you prepare to know your audience? Is that something that you do prepare for? Do you prepare differently for a session like today compared to a session that you might have a couple of weeks from now? Knowing your audience, does it ring a bell for you? What do you think about when you hear that? Cool. Yes. No, I agree. It's super important. Yeah. As if you would have read my next slide, but yeah. So I took a couple of examples of potential attendees to your pitch. Now, this is obviously looking very much at a startup background, right? So potential attendees for a pitch are investors, VCs, angels, etc. And they have different interests. Exactly. Yeah, you need to know what's the interest of the ones that I'm talking to. It might even be that they are not financial investors or in any kind of investors, that you talk to the public hand and you want to sell something and to get not a financing, but you just want to get a green light to be allowed to run another taxi business in a country or whatever. So please know your audience, because if you, I understand it's not working on the screen. The different aspects that those selected stakeholder examples here are looking for can be divided into the different stages that a company or an offering, a value proposition, a product, service are going through, starting from the seed phase, where you obviously have a lot of risk, and then towards the exit phase, you become more and more expensive to invest in for potential investors if you're pitching to investors. So know what they are looking at, know about their interest, and at what point in time you need to talk to whom. It goes even further than that. Let's assume you are established, everything done, etc., and you're not looking at a financial investor, but you're more looking at a strategic partner. Right? Then this strategic partner has a different mindset than those here. Therefore, see them as a selection, as an example. Underlining what we just heard, it's important to know your audience. They might differ in their interest, and therefore your message might differ in the pitch. Following the example of the investors, because it's probably one of the major stakeholder groups that a startup, that a young company would want to pitch to. They are, according to my experience and belief, interested in three major things. One is the idea. So you have to have a convincing model behind your idea. You have to have a clear summary for them. Then they are looking at the market. Is there enough potential in your idea, in your like in the story that you're telling? And first and foremost, they are investing in teams. So first time that I'm jumping out of the slide into a couple of examples that I can provide. When I helped building up this company, Price24, it was an online comparison of prices for mobile phone contracts, internet contracts, all that kind of a price comparison website. And talking to guys that are active in the startup ecosystem. So I'm from Germany, and we have a couple of, I think for Germany, huge, but internationally like moderate-sized VCs and incubators coming up. And one of these guys, he founded Rocket Internet in Berlin, and this gentleman happened to study at the same university with his two brothers. He started Germany's biggest incubator. And he asked me why I wouldn't join his company to build startups. It's like, yeah, look, there was in between my master's and my bachelor's and master's. And it's like, look, Ollie, I'm about to do my master's. Like, what for? Yeah, like, look, first time bachelor came up at that time. I'm a little older than you would have guessed, yeah. So first time bachelor came up. I was like, look, I want to complete my master's, then I go and work. It's like, you don't need that. Come to me, let's work. Yeah, but I don't even have an idea. I don't care. I like you. You seem like a smart guy. Come work for me. We do something. So they invest in teams. And I've had that different, same outcome, different situation, talking to other investors when I was working for RTL as a potential investor, and talking to other investors. And you ask them, hey, what do you look at when you look at a pitch? Yeah, the team. Okay, cool, fair. What do you look at after you had a look at the team? The team. Okay, get it. So they are interested in the people. They are interested in what they bring to the table. And then there's a couple of examples on the right, a couple of quotes where I haven't met all these people personally. So it might be that some of these quotes are the result of research. Yeah? But actually some nice things that you say, okay, for the executive summary, for the idea, you have to be able to summarize it very simple. And there are other sayings that you have to make it stupid, simple. You have to be able to convince kindergarten children or school children from this idea. Shoot for the moon. Yeah, they need to see some ambition. If you tell a financial investor that you're looking for something that is going to earn $500,000 in 5 years, they stop listening to you. If you tell them about $1 billion, they get curious. You might end up with less than $1 billion, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, so venture capitalists only hate surprises. I think that is something that you could say also for other people. I invest in management, not ideas, is the one quote that I think is really what I experience, where always I hear team, I hear people, I hear team, I hear people, and they never stop to tell that. They never grow tired. And then last but not least, a piece of work that is not formally in a good shape cannot be any good content. So also make sure that when you create a pitch, double read all aspects and all slides and all words and align everything, etc., etc. Enabling factors. Before I jump into it, another chance for you to participate. What comes to your mind when you think about what are enabling factors in a pitch that you should be aware of? None needed. Okay. Or you're starting to get tired. Guys, I'm starting to do some sports with you if that continues. Let me phrase it that way. It's everything around that you need to work or to be working in order for you to perform. Yeah? That can be something like, for online pitches, a secure internet connection. There's enough light in the room. You have a good audio. Yeah, maybe without the microphone, none of the Discord guys and girls would be able to follow. If it's too dark, maybe you see the slides, but you don't see me. Well, can question if that is something good or bad, but you don't see me. General factors that work for online and offline, like have your documents up and ready, your equipment charged, ensure that you can tailor your message to the audience you're talking to, and everybody can see and mean what you present. Therefore, I'm trying to make sure that everybody sees from all angles what I'm presenting, and then leave some buffer for extensive meetings, right? So if I'm giving a pitch or this pitching session here, and it says on the agenda it's from 3 to 5, don't book something at 2 minutes past 5, because we might run late. I talk a lot, so I might run late. And then if you do it in person, obviously know the room, prepare enough seats, allow for options to take notes, and think about prototypes, etc., that you might need. I wrote the call out there, prepare as if you were Steve Jobs presenting the iPhone the first time. So some of the faces in the room might not remember that time, but I'm the one old enough to know that time. He was getting on stage and no one noticed at that time, but it was published later. He had multiple iPhones with him because he was too afraid that switching the screen would not work. Right? So he did not actually only swipe and show the next window, but he changed the phone. He trained like a magician to make this that people would not notice. And he thinks 6 or 7 iPhones he used during that presentation, all with the ready-made screen, because that was what he was able to show or was interested to showing. So if you do live demos, if you have a value proposition that is something that you can show as a hardware, make sure it works. Live demos are a risky option. It's super cool if you have convincing value propositions and you want to convince people and everything works. It's super fancy. Everybody loves it. But it's also a high risk of not working. And then a couple of additional aspects to ensure that when you present something, you have everything in order and you can really convince people. And now let me, because I have to refer to some of them without knowing every word by heart. So like left side content, know your slides, know the analysis, know the details you present, the numbers, etc. Have a logical way and try to make it somewhat visually appealing. So if you present tables that are in font size 4.5, probably not even the second row or first row can read it. Yet alone I can't, but make it appealing. And then on the presentation, ensure that there is a screen, that there is light, that there is all the technique that you need. Prepare for language issues or for even a hostile audience. It can be that you are all experts in pitches and you start laughing at me. Because like, what do I know? You're doing this like all your life for the past 10 years on a weekly basis. Then you better tell me. So be prepared. Also then with interruptions, agenda misalignment, stress, etc. So be prepared yourself and make sure that everybody can enjoy something that is prepared from a surrounding factor perspective. So I have the pleasure now, I have been here before. I know the room, I know there's enough light, I know that we have a big screen, I know that we have a capable team here setting everything up, so super cool, I can rely on everything. I arrived here, I basically do need to bring nothing, it's all done. But if you go somewhere and you pitch, well, you might bring your own laptop, is it working with the tech on site, is it not? Yeah? If you're doing that on a big stage in an event, maybe there should be a dry run, something like this. Sufficient preparation and well-being of body and mind is something that is probably helping. And prepare, rehearse, keep your mind and body healthy. Sounds almost philosophical, and I don't want to dive into lifestyle and choices to live your life at that point in time. But for a pitch, make sure that you're not completely hungover, for example, or that you are prepared and you maybe did even a rehearsal. And here, fun fact, I said I'm a consultant, so what we do is pitching our offerings to clients. We want to win projects with that. And we do rehearsals ourselves. And there are senior partners who do that for 30 years. And they join a rehearsal, and they participate, and they present their 2 slides to the group of consultants internally, as if it was the client already in the room. So after 30 years, they still do it. It helps. You find a little flaw, or someone has an idea, or whatever. It's like, oh, hey, by the way, Carsten, if you say that, would you also want to mention this? Can be yes, can be no, but you do a rehearsal, you've done it once, next morning in front of the client, super smooth. And then there tend to be people that are a bit more self-critical. And then don't be too negative. Believe in what you can, believe in the skills you have, believe in yourself. Again, I'm not trying to be a life coach here. I'm just pointing out that this is also one of the enabling factors, and you need to be able to stand up and talk and convince people. And last but not least, this is kind of the things you would want to have in order to maybe overcome the stress, etc. 3 ways to get there. If you have not done it too much, if you need some encouraging push to further work on the nervousness or the pressure you have in those situations, prepare, rehearse, and mind and body as a repetition here. You better know how to present a pitch on an oral presentation super smooth, so that you can convince people without having anything as a slide deck. Yeah? So what is oral presentation including? It's including a lot of things. First, confidence, enthusiasm, and conviction are, I would say, characteristics that help if you have to deliver a pitch, if you have to deliver an oral presentation. So believe in your abilities, be excited, and believe in the content you're presenting. If you are pitching, let's assume that you're not pitching to someone who is sitting there with day one on the job. So the person you're pitching to probably has heard a couple of pitches before. So he or she might be somewhat more knowledgeable of the situation than you are, so they can grasp a good team, they can understand a convincing pitch, they are convincible, yet they have some good practices in mind, yeah? So they know what they're looking for. Now it has to be you who's convincing them. And a great pitch consists of not only a sound document, we will get to that written part later, but also then of a convincing presentation. And the presentation focus, the 3 V's, and the presentation phases are 3 aspects that I would like to dive deeper in this part. First, if you go, and I hope that works with the tone, but I'm going to take it in my hand again. So if you consider a presentation, an oral presentation, it starts with the objective. Let me compare that only to this session here. Not talking about that I'm amazing in creating pitches, but only this session here. I started with giving you a couple of objectives that I would want to achieve. Yeah? So what you want your audience to know, to say, to do. I tried to elaborate what we're going to cover and what is the objective of this session. Second, analyze the individuals. I hope I know what's in here for you today. All good. We do that as a how is this sport called, where you always hand over this little stick and then someone else continues running? We do that. It's sorry? Relay race. Yeah. So individual sprints, right? We do all the sprints. We iterate a lot. We are super agile here. And then do an analysis of the group. Are there different goals in the room? I hope that for a pitch session, we could align on having the same goal in mind. We all want to get a couple of those skills further improved. And then what's the presentation focus? So knowing the audience, and I know you all have different backgrounds, but for the pitch, I would assume we're all somewhat similar in our objectives and interests. Then the presentation has a couple of summary of a couple of key points, then structured points into frameworks, and has a so what. That is in general. The key points is something that I want you to remember. You will see at the end of the presentation, I'm going to repeat my agenda slide for you to remember. Oh, there were objectives, there were enabling factors, there was the oral presentation part and the written presentation part. You don't have to remember every slide I prepare. I'm a consultant. I'm doing too many slides and too many words anyway. But if you remember some key points, that's cool. And that helps also in your pitch. Structure the points into frameworks. I'm always presenting you 3 parts here or 4 aspects there. So I try to make it in a structured form so that it's, even if it's unconscious, easier to grasp for the for the human mind. And focus on a so what. So I presented the objectives at the beginning. Why are you sitting here? Yeah? Why would you listen to me for 2 hours or participate? I try to make it a bit more interactive than just talking for 2 hours. Now, the 3 V's, second part of the oral presentation one. Verbal, what are the words you use? Visual, how to use your body language. And vocal, how you sound when you deliver the presentation. If I'm standing here like this for 2 hours straight, talking to you like this, I would guess it takes about 10 minutes before you either stop listening or you just straight away fall asleep. So I tend to loosen it up a bit. I'm using my hands, even though I'm not gesticulating like a clown, but I'm trying to make it a bit interactive. In terms of, I can move my head, I have eye contact, I can look at you, I can listen to what you say and repeat, like get back to you on those details and discuss with you. I try to look at everybody's face from time to time, so to get you involved. Right? That's all the body language. That's the presentation style. That is different for everybody. That's okay. Some people tend to walk kilometers when they present, but then you can't see the screen. So I'm forcing myself to stand. I try to have a little melody in my voice. Earlier in the coffee chat, we talked about languages, and we said the Italian language is known for being so melodic and so almost music-like. Well, it's not music when I talk, I know, but still I try to have a little pronunciation and a little bit of a melody and not having it too straight and too boring. And then, which words do I use? As I said earlier, we want to make it simple. We want to have it on a basis that you could theoretically explain it to a school kid. Now, you're a bit older than that, you're a bit smarter than maybe someone can cognitively be when he or she is 4 or 5 or 7. But still, I don't have to impress you with any scientific words. I can use simple words to get across what I want to say. Speak the same language, right? So English is not my native tongue. I would assume that I'm speaking enough English to get across the message that I can pass this class, but still I want to use words that I'm capable of and that everybody can understand. As one example for the verbal part, you see another structure element here, right? Back to Steve Jobs, about 10 words per sentence, 10 and a half. I sometimes tend to do that way longer. Should work on that. Percentage of difficult words, less than 3%. So all the sophisticated stuff you can use in the English language, you're trying to reduce that. All the tech language he could include, trying to reduce that. So I want everybody to be able to follow. If you've never done a pitch in your life, I still want you to understand what I'm talking about. And he wants to know people what an iPhone is, even though they have no idea about technology at all. And then a couple of sentences, probably something that is rather than for documentation afterwards, right? We have a recording, we have potentially the slide deck later. I'm not going to read out every example sentence here, but if you want to provide an explanation of the goal or provide some structure, then you can talk about my objective today is, or my presentation is divided into X parts. I showed you the agenda slide at the beginning to make it even more obvious. Right? So trying to provide that structure, give a starting point, have clear summaries, use your sentences in a way that it flows with the content you're presenting. Visual, body language. Right? So posture, movement, gestures, eye contact, facial expression. I covered that in the very rough overview because I can't hold back and I talk a lot, I know. And then maybe one difference that I want to point out here is the difference between in person and then purely online events. And then here today we have a hybrid, so it's a bit of a mix. But if you sit in front of your laptops and you have an online presentation, or you have an online training and you listen for 3-4 hours straight to someone, if this person is only sitting there, and it can be very melodic in its language, super nice, but if there's like no movement at all, it gets a little creepy after a while. So if this person starts running around in the room, doesn't help either, because then you don't see that person anymore. So when we do trainings, and yes, also consultants do a lot of trainings. I remember the last trainings I had, and they were even on presentation. You do things like screaming in a room full of consultants, and you realize how loud or not loud screaming is. And then you do expressions, and you gesticulate like extremely too much. But you get a feeling of, does it help if I only move my hands? Maybe that's a way of moving if I'm sitting in front of my laptop, because it's only that big. And if I move like this, they don't see my hands anymore. But if I want to say, hey, something is enormous, then it's this. And if I say, hey, I'm talking about an enormous amount of to-dos in front of you, I can use all my arm spread. That's okay, you still see me. And the other ones online even so, because there's a good camera here. But so that's super important, and it makes it all even more interactive, even more entertaining in a positive way. And it's important to use these aspects of oral presentation to underline your pitch, to underline the story you want to tell, to bring across the content you want to bring across, and to engage the audience to not fall asleep, even though the pizza was good and maybe you did not bring that cup of coffee that you thought about. You did. So volume, rhythm, tempo, like all aspects that we briefly covered, right? So what really makes your voice differ and not too monotone, but a little bit engaging. And have I said that it helps if you're enthusiastic about it, if you know what you're talking about, if you're into it, it helps. Because then these things typically come a bit more natural, and I don't have to train myself to be super entertaining. Third part, the presentation phases. So you have different phases of the presentation. It starts with a little opening. There typically most of the audience is aware of what you're talking about, and they follow and they are interested. And at the very end, when it's close to, hey guys, there's a coffee break in 5 minutes, everybody's, oh yeah, super cool, and the eyes are up. But somewhere in the middle, it might be that audience loses touch. And you see people sitting on their laptops, on their mobiles, or they straight away just close their eyes, right? So that happens. Now you have to deal with that. And you can play with that a little bit. But just be aware that this can happen. So try to be on point. Try to not make it too boring and too extensive on what you're talking about, especially me. And then still use all the other things. Make eye contact. Engage people by also just looking at them and saying like, hey, I see you. I see that you're listening to me. I'm talking to you when I talk about this topic. I want to get to you and convince you. You can do other stuff to capture the audience, right? You can tell stories or have a contrast in what you say, kind of polarize a little bit, say something controversial, not offensive, but to be discussed then. Have puzzles, questions, and something to simplify people's ability to follow is this list of 3. So here are 4 points on the slide, I know. But before I presented the presentation focus, the 3 V's, and the phases. 3. So that happens a lot especially in consulting stuff. It's always 3 or 5. That's kind of the rule, right? So to have it very simple, 3 things is something that you can typically remember. If we talk about pitches and we leave out the objectives and we leave out the Q&A, it's more or less the enabling factors, the oral presentation, the written presentation. It's 3. If I go for grocery shopping, I don't need to write down 3 things. When we're getting to 5, I need to write it down. And then capturing the audience and the attention level, ask a series of questions. Pause. Not pose, not the first one, but the second one. something that is absolutely fun to train if you're standing in front of an audience and you stop talking for about 10 seconds. That's not even 10. But it gets uncomfortable. Yeah? And people realize, and they're, okay, I've been like writing these super important emails and I have to I have a day job. I can't listen to Manuel all day. He didn't say a couple of words in the last second. What's up? So that works. That works. But it's uncomfortable also for the one being in front. Yeah? If I don't talk for 10 seconds straight, it's getting a little uncomfortable. And that's okay, because it should be uncomfortable for you as well, and then I can get back. Do some live quizzes or prepare slides for handouts so that people can at least interact with the topic if they don't listen to you anymore. Form breakout groups, include props. So this is, for example, something that I would usually do. Now, 2 hours is a super tight window. So I said, like, okay, I'm going to engage you because I ask questions and I ask you, how do you think you prepare for the audience or for oral pitches, etc. But usually what I do when I give longer workshops or trainings or boot camps or whatever, we divide into groups and we start working as we did earlier today, right? So that's what you do to keep people engaged. And then there's another part that is more than for the closing of a presentation phase, right? We had intro, we had this valley in between where we want to keep people engaged. And then the closing, you do a quick recap, you repeat the core message. So what was this all about? You have a call for action. Maybe you have a cool quote of someone that fits into the story. And you can ask rhetorical questions. I mean, obviously, if there are real questions at the very end, super cool. But if I want to ask something rhetorical, to try to loosen the group a bit more or to get a nice smile at the end of the presentation by the audience, etc. So that is something that you can do as well. Written presentation. I continued my stuff as long as I don't hear questions, right? So if you guys have questions, you need to interrupt me. Sorry? There is time in the end, but I said, you were a little late with your coffee, so you have maybe missed. I said in the beginning, it's absolutely fine to be interrupted. I don't take it personally. What I do is, instead of sending you to breakout groups, allowing for these questions here to find a little place and time. So what do you perceive to be important for the written presentation? We had 3 presentations earlier today, all a little different in their style. So it might be my job illness. Then I look at some of the details of the presentations, obviously, at the pictures a little bit. So all different in style, all different in content, obviously. But what's important for you? Now, most of you have not pitched today. What would you consider important when we talk about the written presentation part? So not too much text, like visualize a little, still being able to grasp the essence, even though I'm not listening to Manuel, yeah? So, okay, so don't write an article. Don't do consulting slides if you talk to people. I've had slides with, well, here you have, if you leave out this, you basically have 2 words that I want to bring across on this slide. I've had slides like that for some time in my life. And then I restarted working for consulting. And it got worse. But it can be enough. You can show a picture. We had one of our professors, professor on entrepreneurship, maybe that's also connected. He had about 20, 25 slides for a 3-hour session. And you started writing like crazy because he was talking a lot and he was giving super cool examples and he was telling about all the strategies behind it. But there was a picture, like maybe 1 word. And you end up like having 2 pages full of notes on that 1 word. And we had professors from marketing. He had about 90 slides for 90 minutes. So you were not writing too much because you were trying to understand what he's saying at all. So also that is a big difference. Some general guidelines on how to create that. So a good presentation slide comes with a few important characteristics. Yeah? So just any kind of example, a revenue slide. You have 1 clear message, the content and the statement you have are aligned. So if you look at the title, revenues have been continuously on the rise. If you look at the title or at the graph, yeah, you see that. Yeah. And then you have a slide that's easy to read. It's simple, and less is more. Yes, please quote me on that. Huh? So I like to be challenged. Now, an executive summary, and here are a lot of words already, but for an executive, instead of looking at 14 different pages, if I get that all summarized in this one, it's okay. It's powerful, it's insightful. I have a content description. I have content that is supporting my key message. I'm somewhat still considering this text to be easy to read, so no font size 7. There are maybe graphs on there, clear sources, simple and consistent format, so okay enough. Yeah, bear with me for a consultant. This is fine enough. This I would consider to be the contrary. Yeah. So here, even if you get it in writing and I have to document my presentation and my voiceover, this is still horrible. So you cannot present stuff like that. Not at all. Why not? Because even showing you the picture, you're losing interest, you stop listening to me. I can see in your face that you stop listening because you start reading. Yeah? And it's not even a slide that is of any interest for today's pitching class. So there's total nonsense for you. But you still start reading. And you lose me, and you lose the presentation, and you lose focus, and you lose the concentration. And it's my fault, because I present those slides. Tips to create a slide. Put a lot of words on there, like this one. Well, why am I putting a lot of words on here and not only highlighting or using the highlighted slides? Because I want you to be able, or everybody online, to be able to still understand what I'm saying in 3 weeks from now, when you review that. But for the presentation, for example, I would only go on the purple highlighted words. I would only say, look, content is more important than form. Leverage standard visual templates, so don't jump around. Try to be consistent in the template you use. Ensure horizontal logic, because obviously slide design is no longer a 4:3, but it's rather 16:9 format. Use bullet points. Helps minds to grasp various aspects. Categorize. Keep bullet points parallel. As you can see here, for example, almost every bullet point is starting with a verb. That also is super unconscious. It's not something that you would look for if you're not a consultant, but it helps the mind to grasp things. Use color coding wisely. Don't make it a clown, colorful painting from my 2.5-year-old, but try to make it a presentation. De-word where possible. So if you remove words, can it still be the same message that you want to bring across? The larger the audience, the simpler the slides. And use trackers such like this. We are still in the written communication part of my presentation. So you also know we're getting closer to an end. Some good, nice message. Yeah? But the larger the audience, the simpler the slides. I think if we look at company presentations or pitches that are broadcasted, if there's a new Apple event and they introduce a new product, they don't have a slide like this with 48 different bullet points and words. They have one picture, and maybe there are 2 words next to it. So I think it's not possible to do it any simpler. Sure. Yeah, please.
I was gonna ask just what you mentioned about Apple and having the simple slide. Is there space for creativity in this space of pitching? Like if you're going to be pitching to, I mean, again, I don't have like this crazy experience like you do, but I mean, if you're going to, be pitching to people who, invest in VCs, angel investors, whatever you're pitching to, would they be insulted if you do that Apple approach and go against the grain? Like, does that kind of define your personality? Like, let's say that is who you are, and they're investing in the people and the team, like you mentioned. If you take on approach that's non-customary, is that insulting in the world of venture capitalist pitching? And
I would say not at all. One of the tips and tricks at the very last part in my wrap up, there's like 3 pages tips and tricks, and one of them will say be yourself. So be yourself. If that is how you present your company, and you have 10 slides with a picture each, then you do it.
I mean, how is the reaction to something like that? I mean, again, you have these norms, and then if you go against the norm, is it more of a risk, or do you think that could?
I think it's a risk you can account for. So yes, it will be out of the norm. Yes, they will be surprised. On the other hand, you will stick in their minds because you are the one who was sending 10 pictures. Do you know the 10 picture guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, but by the way, I think his approach on the engineering solution for XYZ is a super cool improvement. And the picture he showed with the market, like one of the pictures could be a market graph. It's also a picture if you only have one line graph. Right? So, but it was super impressive. And then it's even more important what you tell. So if I only have nice pictures, and I don't know who of you realized, but all of my pictures are from Riga. So last time I've been here doing a lot of pictures. This time presentation, only pictures of Riga. So when you do stuff like this, some spoilers. When you do stuff like this, make sure that you have a good story to tell, and that you bring across why you're here. Not necessarily the same level, but when I handed in my CV to kind of rejoin consulting in Kearney, well, I thought a lot on how to structure my CV. I wanted to be a bit more like up to date than the old school table of this is what I do, this is where I studied. So I created a 2 or 3 pages PDF file with my picture, my address, and then some quotes from former business partners and some references and a map of the world where I've been working and the languages I speak and my characteristics. I also had my past and my education. But it was 3 pages PowerPoint. It was colorful because I used some only 3 colors, but I used some colored template to create this CV. And I think a week after signing the contract, and then went to the office and I talked to the HR guy, and they're like, "You're Manuel." Like, yeah, and you? Yeah, we haven't met. I'm Klaus. But I know you from the CV. You're the guy with the super cool CV. I mean, it obviously worked beforehand, yeah, but and I wasn't hired because I had a different CV than just a table, but it worked. So if you do something outstanding, okay, be prepared to deliver everything you want to deliver on top. And then in this case, I would probably differentiate between the pitch that I'm giving in person to the pitch that I'm giving them to read. So if I'm an investor, I need numbers, I need team background, I need market analysis, I need all of that. If I don't get that, I'm not judging you based on 10 pictures. But if I get that, and you send me 2 slides, and one is a super extensive, like consulting full page of details about the team, about the business model, about the market, about the competition, then I have what I need in order to do my due diligence. And then if you stand in front of me and you have 10 pictures, and you get me with your story and 10 pictures, then cool, I can do the rest with the DD team later. So then I would have 2 separate documents to ensure that I still get all the relevant information to my audience that they need. Does it help your? Yeah. So I think because we are somewhere in this valley of your At least it's close to being a food coma. Yeah. I wanted to ask if you're still with me. The next steps I want to discuss. So there are two more chapters: storytelling and then a business plan pitch, and that I want to share with you. So storytelling. There is inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning, because we heard that a great pitch is a sound document and a powerful presentation. We had the oral part, we had the verbal and non-verbal part. Now it's about writing. You had some basic rules. And on storytelling, I want to dive into the grouping or the argument part. So for grouping, you would see that you have an overarching objective topic aspect, and that all the underlying arguments help you to support this. So you have all the details listed to that. And then for the argument part, it is more a flow of reasons, and if you combine them, it leads to a conclusion. Now, for the first one, for the grouping one, a very common methodology to follow is the pyramid principle, where we heard this with the articles in contrast, right? If you look at the pyramid principle, you start with your finding, you start with the result. And then you say, okay, and that's based on my key aspects. And note, it's again 3. Yeah? And they are, again, based on some supporting arguments. In academia, you work the other way around. You have your hypothesis, you do many things, and then at the very end, you have your result. If I write a mail like this to a CEO of a company with a starting and a hypothesis, and I write 2.5 pages, and then I say, by the way, can we meet next week? He or she is not going to read that because they stopped after line 4. If I start with, hey, hope you had a good week so far, can we please make an appointment for next week for a half-an-hour call? I want to discuss, and then I have all the reasons. That's pyramid principle. Very powerful, especially if people don't have time. Not only for your pitch, also for emails, also for private communication, also for whatever you want. Start with your message and then give some reasoning. At least if you have this grouping approach. If you are more the argumentation person, then you can do differently. If we are still in the grouping and we say, okay, but how about storytelling, storyboarding? Yes, that still can go together. So you have an executive summary, but even if we leave that out, we say, okay, there's a couple of issues that I'm trying to focus on. There's a reason for this issue, and then I have some key qualities that I want to focus on, and give some details to that. Right? So describing something that is a situation and then diving into solution right away still would be considered, at least to the methodological scientific part, close enough to the pyramid principle. If we go to the argument one, we have all this situation, complication, resolution, which might be considered similar, and then approach, findings, implications, etc., etc. And it all leads to a framework that I want to present, which is called STOKE, which is a framework that works super well, and I give you various examples to that. STOKE stands for situation, trigger, overriding question, key message, and explanation. That's the structure behind emails, presentations, verbal communication, movies, series, books. So if you take, I don't know, we can jump from Disney movies to Batman or whatever, but if we take Batman, we say there's a situation. We have Gotham City being a super international a mega city. The trigger is, the problem is that there's this Joker guy turning the city upside down. So how can we get back to normal is the question. Obviously, the key answer to that is we have Batman. And Batman will bring things back to normal. Is there some explanation on top? Yes, he's a ninja, he's a super billionaire, he has all the cool gadgets, he has Robin, he has Batwoman, etc., etc., etc. The same works for Lion King, the same works for books, the same works for any other aspect in life. People are used to follow this kind of storytelling, and it helps a lot to grasp people's attention, even unconscious. If I do it in a business situation, and those are also the examples that you see here, yeah. So we have a situation where you just explain what it is. The Batman was Gotham City is a mega city. Yes, okay, nobody is surprised. The market environment has been steadily growing, and recent technology push helped to elevate this even further. Yeah, like everybody in the room will know. They know their markets, they know the industries. Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you telling me? Yeah, of course. Well, last year, shift in the regulations forced many companies to change the way they conduct business. That's the problem, exactly. That's why we're here. Now, this overriding question is not necessarily one that I would need to write on a slide in my pitch deck. If I have a situation and the trigger, the question is clear. Yeah, so obviously here the question is, how can I deal with these regulations? Do I need to write that down? No. But then I'm going to present the key message, and that is then my solution, my pitch. And I have lots of explanations on why my pitch is so good and my value proposition is helping. And we had that elevator pitch a second ago. True story, happened to me, I think it was just before COVID happened. We were supposed, as a consulting company, we were supposed to have a meeting with the CEO of a company. We wanted to pitch our approach for a problem that we discussed with them. We knew they have this situation. We wanted to pitch our proposal to get a project. And that's how we earn money. That's how we want to pitch. We want to earn money. And one of the Carney partners and myself sitting in front of the CEO office and waiting, and he was like 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. The secretary approached us, if we want another cup of coffee or glass of water. She was super sorry, super embarrassed. It wasn't her fault. 20 minutes late, 25 minutes late, 30 minutes late. He rushed out of his office, excusing himself 4 or 5 times that there was a super important stakeholder meeting and it took longer, etc., etc., etc. And then he excused himself again because he would literally have no time. He needed to go to another meeting at the other part of the city. So we had, and the first time in my life, we had an elevator pitch in the elevator going down to the garage and he entering his car and leaving. Well, yes. I mean, could have gone wrong, absolutely, yeah. But this is one of the examples where, and I'm a big fan of failure culture and talking about failures and what did not work, but this time it worked. We showed him this slide. We had a title saying that our approach will tackle this and this and this problem in a thematic way X. And then we had, again, 3 parts of the slide, 3 columns with the 3 major parts of the project that we're proposing and kind of the key takeaway as a tombstone underneath. That's it. And it was to sell our project proposal to him, and he would be able, like, he would be the one where we wanted him to agree so that we get paid and can start the project. So we showed him one slide, and I was literally, I don't have my laptop here, but it was my laptop on my arm in the elevator, going to his car, shaking hands. He sat down, drove off. Day after, his secretary called, made another appointment for 1.5 hours, I think 2 or 3 weeks later. So that is powerful if you have the right storytelling, right? We said, look, we understand your situation. Here's how we're going to solve it. And obviously the situation trigger part was 1.5 sentences on the way to the elevator. And that's maybe not the way it should be, but this Stoke framework, it helps a lot. So thinking about your pitches might be a good idea to do something like this. And that's my last part now. A business plan pitch. Now I gave you a lot of input on what are enabling factors. What do you do in oral presentations? How do you perform? How do you move? How do you use your voice? Written communication, Stoke framework, slide details, etc. But what about a business plan pitch? There's a couple of definitions. What is a business plan good for, right? It's good for communicating your business model. It is good for giving others an understanding of what you do, but it also helps to monitor and kind of guide internal teams towards a common goal. And so it's marketing, self-information, and the business plan impressively and convincingly demonstrates the possibility that the underlying business idea will generate turnover to deliver satisfactory results. That makes it interesting. Now, for the pitch deck, somewhat touching parts that we had before, but also parts where I said, be yourself, what is going to be on one of my slides. Yeah? So know your counterpart. We said we need to know the attendees, know the organizational aspects, know and deliver your numbers, bring all materials that you need, be on time, be yourself. If I'm myself, if I only show you 10 pictures, I'm going to be myself because then I'm most convincing. And then a couple of details that you can also read on the, in the deck later or review online. 10 to 20 slides, clear structure. The numbers part should be clearly structured, and make sure that you have the most relevant KPI for the audience you talk to. I introduced you to the Stoke framework: situation, trigger, key message, the overriding question, and the explanation. Now I'm going to give you the last 4 or 5 slides with a structure of a business plan. There are different structures, and I shortened this deck because I also have examples where you could have 5, you could have 15 different sections, and so on and so on. But typically, some like most common ground or basis that they all share are these 9, more or less in this order: introduction, problem, and solution. So that is situation, trigger, and my key message. Do I need this overriding question? No. If I make the title of my solution slide answering an implicit question, I don't need my trigger, my question articulated. And then everything that comes behind my solution is an explanation on why my solution is going to be so successful. I will. The next slides are doing exactly that. That's why I have 4 more slides. And now I have been challenged a couple of times. Why is team so late? Yeah, you can do the team here, but then no one knows what you talk about in details. If you do it right after the solution, yes, and I like that I interpret it as then you forget what the team is until the end of the presentation, right? So you want to keep that in mind of the people. So I did put it there. I've seen different. And here, yes, you have some degrees of freedom. Yeah? If you want to present your team here and here and here and there, be my guest. Yeah? I said earlier that when I ask investors what they invest in people. And when okay, I get that. And after that, I invest in people. Okay, I mean, they are super important. But after you understood who the people on the team are, then you invest in the people. Okay, I got it. And then I stop questioning. Yeah? So yeah, feel free to challenge me if you want to categorize it differently. Be my guest. Introduction and problem. So a 1-sentence high-level pitch as intro. It can be the summary. When you asked the question earlier to Alex, like what exactly are you doing? In my mind, I formed something like, we are a development company that is supporting customers, industry agnostic, to help digitalize their current processes. Something like this. Yeah. And I asked, exactly, so individualizing. I asked him, he said, like, yeah, you could say that. So obviously those are my words. Yeah. But I would try to create this 1-sentence overview. And then obviously, if we're talking about a pitch to an investor, they are interested in current stakeholders, in your legal name. They need some kind of information provided to them. It's not a slide that you would read out. It doesn't matter if you are a limited, if you are a whatever type of company, if you stand in front of those people. It's to read, but you need to have it somewhere. The problem. What is the problem? And who's the target group? So what are we talking about? Why are we here? Why are we listening to you to pitch your idea? Well, because I found a solution for people always falling asleep in my presentations. Okay, right, so you would note that a little different, but you would say, look, situation is, we do presentations all over the world, we do workshops, we do classes, we do masterclasses, we do them in person, we do them online, and no one has the camera on and always people fall asleep. The solution is, we always do them only with the complete audience standing while we do it. No one can fall asleep. And by the way, we create a cool new tool. That's already here now, yeah? We create a cool new tool that is not giving an air refreshment scent, but that is pouring caffeine into the air as a powder, right? So everybody in the room is going to be super energized. Or we give away shockers together with the name tags at the entrance of the building. Yeah, that's it. Even if you don't put it on your shirt and you put it in your pocket, you still get a shock. Problem solved. Now invest in me. So you provide intro and problem, then you dive into the solution. What is the value proposition? Bring it on, like make it precise. What's the USP? And then bring a demo or click demo. Suggestion here, not necessarily a live demo. Back to the Steve Jobs example with the iPhones. Yeah, live demos are always risky. You can test it 100 times, and if you're convinced, do it. If you have a little doubt, don't do it. And then we have situation, problem, solution, or situation, trigger, and key answer. And now all the details are my explanation within the Stoke framework. So go into the market. You can obviously, there's a break I wasn't intending, but you can obviously go into very much detail with the market, have it high level enough, but also at the same time detailed enough so that people still get interested and are listening to you. For VCs or bigger investors, they would want to look at really big numbers. I've had a couple of friends from university. So I've studied business, and they were obviously business majors as well. And they teamed up with a couple of engineers from another university, and they were doing, actually it was a university project at first, and it was on band-aids that you would be able to use inside your body. So after an operation, they would not knit you, but they would put a band-aid on it, then close the wound, and then it would dissolve within 2 weeks by itself. Yeah. Super fancy stuff. A big pharma was included, the university was included, and then some of my colleagues from business university. The big pharma turned it down because they said there's a market of less than $1 billion for this in Europe. We're not investing. Okay. They got a nice arrangement to use this patent, and they formed a company and did it themselves and with other investors, because there are other investors that do invest into markets that are less than $1 billion. This pharma company was not at all interested, because it works also with current glue solutions. It also works with other stuff, but then you have to either remove it or like reopen. Like it's crazy. Yeah? So it was not necessarily something they need to push to the market, and then they lose interest. So make sure that the your market numbers fit the interest of your audience, where we had earlier, know your audience. If they're looking for big numbers, make sure you have big numbers, else you need other investors. Competition and business model. So competition, one sentence that I've myself heard a couple of times in my life, talking to startups. Yeah, we don't have competition. But how is it solved at the moment? Yeah, there's no one who's doing the same as we do. Aha. But what is the solution that's currently being used? Right, when the fork was invented, there probably was either a spoon before or at least the hand. Right? So something was there before. So you don't have a competition because no one has invented a fork. Okay, understood. But you're replacing something. And that is what I want to learn about. Now the fork obviously has a couple of advantages compared to my fingers, but besides that, it might be, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But that is super important. Why do you provide value? And you can use visuals. We had visuals before as a better presentation parts. So make sure you know what you're competing against. And if you, I had a pitch when I was working for RTL. I had a pitch from a company that was focusing on children and wanted to create digital apps on tablets for children. So, okay, cool. Who's your competition? Yeah, that is kind of app that has no competition yet. We ended up agreeing that they compete for the time the children spend with the app, and they compete with others about the same time. It can be a learning app, it can be television, it can be internet, YouTube, it can be the tennis lesson or football class or my piano class or whatever. But I'm competing against the time that this kid has during the day. And there are many, many others who also want to have that time slot. So I have a lot of competition, right? So everybody has competition. And the business model, well, obviously, how do you earn money, right? How's the investment going to pay off? And then what are the details? What is a revenue cost aspect? We saw the business model canvas earlier in In's presentation. So make sure that you have an understandable business model. Doesn't necessarily to be in the business model canvas style, even though Alex Osterwalder is a cool guy and it's a really great model, but there are other ways to also summarize that. Team and status, I think I said a lot about the team. So super important, present the team, present the strength, say why you picked that team or who's bringing what part to the party. And be hungry. So show them, demonstrate them, not only on the slides, but also how you present that. If you're almost falling asleep yourself during your pitch, you're not hungry. Yeah, so, but you should be there 110% engaged and super, super keen to talk about this. And they feel if you like what you talk about. Yeah, exactly. Earlier today, I said be prepared and be like in a good mindset and don't be hungover. Here, the status is not the situation I explained in the beginning, but status here means more like what's my financial or business status at the moment? Where am I? What is my look ahead? When we remember In's presentation earlier today, we are in the middle of 7 steps of the STARRISE journey. That's the status. Yeah. So I want to tell them, look, I started 1.5 years ago. It can also be part of the situation in the beginning, but if I know, say, where am I? I had some pre-funding. This is what I achieved. This is what we're doing right now. With your potential investment, we're looking at this part in the future. And then you show them a bit of the status and the outlook. And last but not least, you're going to have a certain ask. Yeah? And if you're pitching, most of the times it's pitching for financial investments or strategic partnerships, then you're not asking for numbers, but then you're asking for contacts, for any kind of value chain support or networks, whatever. And it depends on whether it is presented live or submitted. You might need to adjust those slides a little bit. One hint, never, I mean, we all know Shark Tank and similar series from TV, yeah, but typically you would not necessarily include in the first touch point your company presentation and your direct ask. Shark Tank is well prepared, and as in the second that they get into the show, everybody more or less has heard about it, and they play a nice role in listening to it the first time. But if you do that really the first time, you don't have to argue that your company evaluation is 3.554 million, because it might be 3, it might be 4. Let that sink in, and you can discuss later. But you should know about it. If they give you an offer to buy 10% of your company for 100,000, you should be able to say, well, I might want to reconsider because that seems a little low. If you're super surprised by that and you say yes, you have a problem. Good. Yeah, just a quick. Basically, it's more for the summary of it. A quick thing on the financials. Have them structured, have them prepared. Include the KPI that you would want your investors to know that they are used to look at, like the profit and loss, cash flow details, KPI, customer acquisition cost versus customer lifetime value. How much does it cost me to get someone, and how much will I earn with this additional person? Right? Stuff like that. So obviously, maybe. So obviously financials need to be in shape. And then I think, yeah, that is common pitfalls for the pitch, but also then financials, right? If you have a concept described with very technical precision, but you don't know how to earn money, well, then you're probably a super tech guy, an engineer, and I admire that, but then the commercialization doesn't help if it's missing. Product is supposedly innovative, that there is no competition. I said that doesn't exist. revenues overestimated and cost and capital requirements underestimated, then your financials will be torn apart in the next due diligence phase. Or if there is no competitive advantage in the business plan, then you can't convince your investors why to invest. I know I'm getting a bit towards the end. If I'm correctly with my time, I have about 10 minutes left to still stay in line, even though we started a little later. But as you realize, I talk a lot, but fast. And I just overwhelmed you with so many nice consulting slides that you forgot half of them. But that's why I do a Q&A and a wrap-up now. So my last 4 slides, because the last 4 that I announced were in this storytelling part, and now are the last 4 of the whole presentation. Bit of tip on tricks and a summary. 4 parts that I said I'm going to summarize. So you have been kind of exposed for this wave of information, a couple of examples, to know your audience when you're pitching, to consider the surrounding enabling aspects and factors, to think about the way of the oral presentation, body language, tone, etc., and to think about the written presentation part, be it the Stoke concept, in the length of business plan or not. If we listen to a couple of presentations tomorrow afternoon, let's focus on keeping it short, right? We don't need a 20-page, perfectly nice and shiny presentation. No, you can do it without slides. You can just get up in the front and give a little presentation. I personally would still do it with the Stoke approach: situation, trigger, and my key answer. But it's up to you, as you like, as you feel comfortable. Be yourself. And now the last 3 slides, a couple of tips and tricks. And so, as I said here, you covered the full session. You are brave and polite enough to still sit here and to follow. And I did not see people falling asleep. I'm not sure about Discord or the other room, I can't see, but everybody in this room is still awake and more or less smiling. So you followed the pitch perfect, mastering the art of innovation storytelling. And now it's time for a couple of tips and tricks before I stop talking. Know your counterpart, know and deliver the numbers, complete your contact details, show passion, and be prepared and be yourself. Some of that was already in the previous slides. That's why this is the wrap-up. Accuracy, preparation, and also contract. Here it's contact, contract details. Those are 3 things that come probably later. Yeah? Accuracy also helps obviously during the pitch, but then later we will really go into the numbers. That's why in some of the Shark Tank episodes you see that, or you hear that, yeah, based on last week's show, there was one deal that did not really take place because in the end they realized there were some hidden aspects in the numbers that no one talked about before. Okay, keep it short. Don't write a novel, an article, a book, whatever. Make it clear. Keep it short and simple. KISS. And I keep it short and simple. Not keep it stupid simple. I on purposely did the short thing. But yeah, right? Have it short, have it clear, have it as error-free as possible, right? So reread your slides. Do it non-techy, so do it understandable. Be impressive. Also, everything that you give away, your prototypes, your tests, your demos, your handouts, it has to be impressive. Does it need to be with a golden something and all pre-printed and delivered by someone on a golden on a red carpet? No. But it has to not be the paper that I slept on last night and it was somewhere in my bed. I'm sorry, but it looks a little ugly, but there's coffee on it. But it's super cool inside. And be objective. Be precise. I would personally definitely say, yes, you have to be ambitious on one side, but then also don't be completely over the moon and be conservative where it makes sense. And you want to also be able to meet what you promise. Please don't do a novel. If that is your business plan, I hope that's not what you're presenting. And it's a real example, right? I received there were, I think, 4 pictures in there, but it was 27 pages of text. And then the last sentence here said something like, the estimated profit in year 1 will be 70,342 and 11 cents. And then in year 2, it will be 2,295,489 and 72 cents. And that's why exactly? Like how many customers? What are your business departments? But I could have majored in engineering with all the remaining text because I exactly knew what they were doing in terms of product. I had no idea about the market, the customers, nothing. So here is where I say, are you guys kidding me? Please don't. Yeah. So no novel. Please, no careless mistakes, no inconsistency. You can be nervous when you talk. That's okay. I also have forgotten a word when I was presenting, or you stumble and then sometimes no, actually I have to restart that phrase. Yeah, okay, that's super cool. They are sitting there because that's a full-time job. You're getting in front to pitch, not because it's your daily job, but because you want to convince someone of a cool idea or a value proposition that you have. And then later, please don't do an ego trip. Ask for a review and insights. And something that always comes up from now and then, typically there's no need to get someone to sign an NDA. Yeah? So here, when I talk to all of you, I'm not necessarily signing an NDA because I listen to your idea. When I do that as a consultant, when I do that as an entrepreneur, or in the past in university or wherever, I don't sign those NDAs. If I do my job correctly, then I should have a moral that is high enough to do this job. If I don't have this moral, and if I don't stick to keep things confidential, this information will spread like fire, and tomorrow no one will want to work with me again. So we had that earlier in one of the 3 pitches we heard, or the 3 company insights we heard, that people tend to be very cautious in what do I share, what don't I share. So would I take my super secret e-commerce business model idea and tell it a former student of my university who owns this rocket internet incubator in Berlin? No. Because he literally has a building that is half full of programmers and half full of marketing experts. And it takes him probably 2 weeks to recreate what I have as an idea. Maybe I haven't even started. Would I tell that someone of you or a close friend or someone where I value the idea absolutely? Yes, probably yes. Because I might be months ahead of you in that thinking. Yeah? So I don't worry to be copied. Will I be copied? Yes, if I'm good. But maybe not on day 1. Maybe on day 29, as we learned. And last but not least, the translation of some common phrases. This is more for fun. Yeah? What's in the plan? Well, we conservatively calculated, we heard that it usually is about that. Let's do it. We have halved our most realistic assumptions. Actually, we divided everything by half because we needed bigger numbers. We expect a 10% margin. Well, there was some template that said 10 is cool and you want to see 10. Let's do 10. The product is really almost finished. I would say 98%. Yeah, but it will take us another couple of years to get there. And we only need a 10% market share, just like anyone else who's pitching, because you always only need 10% market share. And customers are raving about our product. And we don't know how to earn money, but the idea was super, super cool for every relative that I asked. And there is no competition except that all the big players have recently announced plans to go into exactly that market in 2025. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. And now I'm very happy to have questions if I'm still allowed to spend